Hi, if you are a beginner drawing with pastel pencils, if you would like to start drawing your animal portraits with pastels, and if you're wondering if there is a cheaper alternative to Pastelmat paper from Clairefontaine, you're right here. I always highly recommend to use Pastelmat from Clairefontaine. It's my absolute favorite paper, and my drawing technique works so well on that. But for many beginners, it costs a little bit too much money, or they would not like to waste the expensive paper, or they just are looking for a cheaper alternative. So I've made this video for you and show you what paper you can use instead. Before I show you what paper that is, I invite you to join my free 3 days online drawing workshop, September 2nd to 4th. We will draw a beautiful leopard eye, and I show you how to draw black and white fur with pastel pencils. You can participate if you are a complete beginner or if you would like to refine your drawing skills. And it is not only drawing lessons, you can get support, my help, tips, bonuses. It will be fun, it's a community, and you get my support, and also yes, it's the community feeling. So you can sign up below with the link. I hope I see you there.
So here I have the sandpaper with the 1000 grid number. I tried to draw a small dog eye here, and let's see how it works. So take the black pastel pencil, the pit pastel pencil, and I draw here an outline of a small dog eye. So the first feeling is not bad. It's a nice feeling here on the sandpaper. Make a bit of a sketch here in the middle, a pupil, and sketch in here the highlight. Let's also add here above a bit of a shadow here in the eyelid. So it's a bit of a higher color aberration, I have the feeling, than on Pastelmat, but the pigment sticks well here on the sandpaper. Let's then plot in a little bit of a lighter orange brown color. I use here burnt ochre, and then also a bit of burnt sienna, a middle brown. Plot in here the mid-tone a bit. And then I try to take a paper stamp and blend it. Go in with the paper stamp and blend the first layers. It removes a bit more pastel pigment than Pastelmat paper does, but yes, it let it blend a little bit. So I go over here once more with the brown, and let's plot in a little bit blue in the highlight area here above, light blue, and then blend it for the first base layer. Then I also darken down the edges a bit with a walnut brown, a bit more of a darker brown, and add some highlights with white, some little dots here above in the highlight area. Then go in with the brown, black again in a bit, and add some more darks. Also some darker areas in the highlight here. I then draw some teeny tiny fine little strokes downwards into the iris area. Let's also add a bit of black here below. blend the black a little bit into the eye area with the paper stamp. Blend it also here a bit. Yes, so if you're working with a light hand, this is possible to draw on that sandpaper. It's not rough, it's a nice feeling. I can here achieve details, fine lines. Maybe let's add a bit of orange brown here in the eye corners. Then take the black again, bringing in here a bit black around. I have a bit of the feeling that the colors smear easier, so that the pastel pigment does not stick so well to the paper, but I can add details. I can add here also teeny tiny little lines, so that's definitely working. I can also go over darks with a lighter color. Let's also try to draw a little bit fur around. I plot in a little bit brown here around the dog's eye. Let's plot in a bit of the color for the base layer here around in fur direction. And then take a paper stamp and blend that. So I must say, when I blend over the brown, I remove much more pigment than I do on the Pastelmat from Clairefontaine. So I have here really to be careful not to blend over that base layer too much. I can here blend over it, but a lot of pigment, I have to blow away a lot of pigment. Let's take then the black and add some teeny tiny fine little black lines. So that is working here with the first layer. Let's add some little hairs in fur direction. Let's take the white a bit and brighten up the part below the eye and add a bit of a highlight. Mix the white with the brown, or I use here the white for brightening up the brown here a bit. Add some white strokes around the eye. So it is possible to add fine details. When I then blend over with the paper stamp, then the lines disappear a little bit. So here the blending is working better, in my opinion, on the Pastelmat, because the pastel pigments stick better to the paper. Let's add here another layer with fine black little details. Also here above, let's add some more black lines here in the fur direction, bringing a bit depth into our fur here around the dog's eye. So drawing fine lines is definitely possible on that fine sandpaper. 1000 grit number is a nice, so it's not too rough, it's smooth. It is working here really well. Let's go over also a bit with another brown here with the ochre brown. Let's add some more different layers. So with burnt ochre, bringing some other browns into the fur and a little bit brown. It's burnt sienna. So yes, maybe then also go over with the white once more and add some brilliant highlight hairs. So you definitely can add some layers. That is working. I will then also try to draw also a clump of fur here below. So then I try to zoom in a little bit. So here the eye was working really well. Let's also try to draw a bit of a brown fur. I take a bit of a brown here as an underpainting. Yes, it has really a very high coloration. So you have a lot of pigment on the paper, more than on the Pastelmat. When you then blend over, I try to blend it a bit with the finger. That is working well. When you go over with the paper stamp, yes, you remove more of the pigment, what is good, what I also do on the Pastelmat paper. But let's have a look and test out how much pigment stays on the paper. Because when you blend over here and remove a lot of pigment, that's what I'm doing on the Pastelmat, there should be a nice base layer on the paper. But yes, it is. Let's then go in with black and add black hairs. So black shadows in the fur. Let's have a look how that is working. The first layer is working really well. So I have a good feeling when I'm drawing the fine lines. I can achieve very fine thin lines. And if I would like also thicker lines. So applying different amounts of pressure here is working. I let them a bit cross. Let them go together to clumps a bit here below. Let's then blend over with the paper stamp. So I test out blending over with a little pressure. Then I have the feeling it starts to smear a bit. The blending process is definitely working better on the Pastelmat paper. Here I see the difference, but when you blend over with very little pressure, blow away a bit of the pigment, you have a nice underpainting here and can continue to work on it. Let's go over again with the middle brown here a bit with little pressure and add some more brown strokes. Here a bit in fur direction. Then also maybe some lighter browns, so a bit of ochre brown. Let's test if light over dark is working. I let the hairs cross, let them overlap. Also experiment a little bit with different amount of pressure. So press a little bit more for some thicker lines and very teeny tiny hairs, thin hairs with very little pressure. So the thin lines are working here. Let them here overlap, cross. Let's then also go in again with the black. That I add a bit more depth here between darker shadow parts once more, or also here below some more fine black hairs that are crossing, overlapping. Here too some so crossing fine hairs. You have to work with very little pressure. And yes, it's working. Here the hairs are a bit pretty. Maybe I blend over carefully with the paper stamp. Then go over here again with brown a bit. So it's a bit, I really have to be careful not to apply too much pressure. But then the layering process is working. I go over with the white here with very little pressure and try to add lighter strokes, highlights. Let them overlap and cross here. So I would say it's definitely an alternative for the Pastelmat for practicing and for the start. So you can achieve nice realistic results, but the better feeling that I don't smear the lines I have on the Pastelmat paper. I try out my knife technique a little bit, scratching away a bit of pigment and adding in fine little strokes to refine the fur rendering. Yes, it's also working a little bit. What I also sometimes do is to color the fur a little bit with another color, to swipe over lighter areas with a lighter pencil and add a layer of color that is very transparent. Here the paper shows me that the possibility of doing that and the possibility of layers then ends. For sure it is not the high quality artistic paper, it's just sandpaper, but yes, you can draw here nicely on it and create a nice fur structure. So that's definitely possible to use it for the start and to save a bit money. I would say let's try to blend a little bit the color into the background and create a bit of a blurry transition or so. That's also possible. Okay, let's I will once more try to test how the paper reacts when we apply really more pigment with more pressure. So I try to plot in a little bit more black at the beginning. Here I use more pressure and apply more black. That the paper really has a lot of black here on it. Blow it away a little bit of the pigment, and then I try out with brown how I can draw on it. So the brown is showing up really not so bad. When I use more pressure, the lines become thicker. Let's add another color. But then the lines start to smear. So when you work with more pressure here now, I have a muddy feeling. The lines start to smear together. But then I have a thicker layer for the underpainting. And then the white also starts a bit to mix together with the layers below. But when I then reduce the pressure, it's possible again to draw fine lines over it. It's really funny. The paper does not allow a lot of pigment, but when you then go over with a little pressure, you are able again to draw fine lines on top. So it's not a bad solution, I would say, for practicing as an alternative to your more expensive high quality Pastelmat paper, just for testing out. Of course, it does not work exactly in the same way, but you can achieve nice results. So for those of you who want to save a bit money at the beginning, so if you are interested in drawing animals with pastels and don't want to invest in the high quality Pastelmat paper right from the beginning, I highly recommend to do that later. But for the start, it's a nice option to use sandpaper with a grit of 1000 or higher. This is a sandpaper with 1500. I try to draw here a clump of fur with white. Add first the base layer. The first base layer appears a little bit gritty. Yes, it's sandpaper, so the color shows through a bit, but when we then blend it, it should become smoother, and yes, it is becoming smoother, so that's good. Blend that first base layer. I also tried out to blend over it with the finger, what I do sometimes when the fingers are clean. That is also working. Then let's go in a bit with a brown and add some darker marks, some darker shadow parts in the fur. Let the lines cross. So far the feeling is good. It's a bit scratchy, not muddy, not smearing. I like it when you hear the sound a bit, the sound, and not these smeary feeling. Blend over it. The layers stay. Blend a bit over it with the paper stamp. Then I have to be very carefully that the lines are not disappearing. So you have to work with a light hand here too. Let's also go in with a lighter orange ochre, burnt ochre, and add a bit of color over that part of the fur here. Color it a little bit orangey. That is also working, so I see the layers below shining through. Then I go in again with the brown and add here and there some more darker parts in the fur. Shadow areas. I test also out to press a bit more here and there, and then go over again with a little less pressure. Then take the paper stamp and blend a bit over it to make the line straighter. Then I take white. And let's go over here with the white. White is also showing up. Let the white lines cross. Use very little pressure for very fine little lines. Rotate the pencil a bit. So it's possible to achieve fine little thin lines. That's good. Let here the hairs go together to little clumps and so on. Experiment a bit with more pressure. Yes, they are showing up. So it's possible to draw in different layers here on the sandpaper. When I go over here with the finger a bit, it's a bit of a rougher feeling than on the Pastelmat. I would like to remove here a bit of the grit. Yes, that's also working on that paper here. Okay, let it fade a little bit into the background. It's working, so it allows some layers. Also the 1500 pastel, not pastel paper, sandpaper, to use it for pastels. So yes, either 1000 or 1500 would be a great option to draw your portraits at the beginning. So you can definitely use it for practicing. Just have a look in your hardware store and try it out. It is waterproof, this one. It might not be as acid-free as the Pastelmat paper is, so maybe colors will change over time, but for practicing, for trying out the technique and for learning, this should be a nice cheap option, so keep that in mind.
Okay, so I hope this is helpful for you if you are looking for a cheap alternative to Pastelmat. I highly recommend Pastelmat all the time, and I also encourage you to use it in future. But for your start or for just testing and experimenting and practicing, also the sandpaper with the higher grit number would work. Okay, so I hope that is helpful for you. If you are starting out or would like to refine your drawing skills, join my free 3-day drawing workshop, September 2nd to 4th. I would love to see you there. I draw with you together a beautiful leopard eye, and I show you how to draw detailed black and white fur. You can sign up in the link below in the description.